Hello, and welcome back to the Chris McPherson Show, our weekly show where we talk around the grounds. We go all around the grounds on all the sporting matters that matter. For you, no grey opinions here, all black and white. We're going to dig into it today. I'm joined by Brodie Burrows from the Third Man Up podcast. Broads, good to have you back on deck.
Good to be back, Chris.
And of course, Broads, if people want to catch up on more of the AFL, they can find you on any of your good podcast platforms with the Third Man Up podcast.
Yeah, that's right. With the one and only Peter Spider Everett. He's a little bit disappointed. Now the old fella, he's moved to third on the all-time AFL fines list. He's no longer sitting at number one. Toby Green and Zach Butters have taken that off him.
Is there some way we can get him fined for something else? Maybe he doesn't want to pay it, but, we can go fund me afterwards. You said this week's episode he's taking a crack at a few names, so maybe you'll get another one.
Yeah, hopefully none of the big dogs on the AFL committee tune in this week. Otherwise, he might be back up top of the list, I reckon.
Be careful what you wish for, Spider. Of course, if you want to keep up to date with us during the week, you can subscribe to our YouTube. You'll get all of our daily doses, or you can get along on our social media channels, X, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at The Chris Mack Show. But, Broads, there's plenty to talk about around the sporting landscape this week. We're going to start. I know it's not your niche or your strength area, but the NRL. Brandon Smith, the Hectic Cheese as he's known, one of the wildest nicknames. He's living up to the hectic bit. He's been charged with drug and gambling offences, so insider information in terms of the gambling. Drug supply, it's believed to be in relation to supplying or organising the supply of cocaine for a rugby league golf day or players playing golf. Rugby league and scandals are never too far apart. I did a bit more of an in-depth dive on this earlier in the week, and it certainly piqued some interest, but this has got to have some question marks over it, and especially when you allow this is a guy that got pushed out of the Roosters mid-season. It makes you question, did the Roosters know something? And if they did, they're going to be in a little bit of strife as well. So a lot of question marks over this. Exactly
right. And unfortunately, it's not just NRL now. We've seen so many scandals in the AFL and, of course, the much-reported stuff, anytime anyone from the soccer or football world does anything, especially the fans, they seem to get jumped on now. And it's becoming more and more rife. We know, obviously, Melbourne have had their issues in the AFL, and obviously NRL, it just seems every couple of months it's one big issue seems to pop up. Not exactly like this, but similar to this.
There's always something to talk about. You said about the AFL, it was only yesterday that there was 4 non-playing individuals, but people charged around Brownlow Medal Awards from 2021 and 2022, 102 charges across 4 men. So there's always someone looking to get into sport. And the drugs bit to the side, again, young men with a lot of money and loose time, drugs tend to be not too far away. We've seen that with sport. It's an unfortunate part of it, but it is the reality. But gambling, it's such an interesting one. We talked about it last week around the slurs and then, the contradiction with Snoop Dogg. This is the same thing here. Like, the governing bodies, the administrators will want to try and distance themselves and try and say they do everything to protect the game from these things. But at the same time, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but they do take money from gambling agencies as sponsors. So it's a very sordid web, and it's only ever millimeters from disaster when players are that close to these constant branding pieces, and it's ever present as well.
Yeah, I don't think I've watched a sports show this year or even a live sports game where there hasn't been a betting advert of some kind at the start, halfway through, and at the end. It's, for me right now, and even without the show, the best multis of the round, which is not something that's wrong, but if you are going to condemn this so much, then don't advertise it, and you can't have your cake and eat it too, Chris.
Yeah, I think it's a hard one, right? Like, we've obviously seen tobacco and alcohol either banned or minimised from sporting advertising, and that's been a financial impact. It costs a lot of money to run these sporting leagues. They need to find it from somewhere, and unfortunately, the businesses that tend to make the most money are the ones that are associated with vices. And look, we have never run a sports betting ad, but if any betting companies are listening, everything's for sale for the right price, Brodie.
Exactly right. I'm not going to say we don't do it on our podcast, because we absolutely do. But at the same time, we're not getting the big bucks, and we're not condemning it as much as the AFL or NRL are.
Oh, you might have to chip it all in for Spider's fines. Yeah, we'll wait and see. While we're on NRL, I touched on it at a very high level on that Brandon Smith video the other day. Josh Hannay has been appointed as the Gold Coast Titans coach for 2026. He will replace Des Hasler, who's been moved on. And today, in the lead up to us recording on a Wednesday for a Thursday release, it's been announced that Adam O'Brien, probably one of the worst kept secrets in the NRL, is on the way out at the Newcastle Knights. Unsurprisingly, these two sides both sitting down in the cellar The Knights have conceded an average of like 40 points a game for the last 5 or 6 games after having a really good defence and a poor attack at the start of the year. Now they've got a poor attack and a poor defence, and now they'll have to find someone else. There's talk they might bring in a new coach in terms of a coach who hasn't coached first grade before, like a Blake Green, and have maybe someone experienced alongside him, although Justin Holbrook, who's ironically enough a former Titans coach, also in the crosshairs. But mate, when it all goes to the proverbial roads and it all goes to shit, it's the coaches that are the first ones to wear it in the neck.
Exactly right. It's that time of year where there's, it's a bit of a revolving door sometimes, and you get the silly Sunday, Mad Monday, and sometimes you're celebrating the season. Other times you're celebrating, this is my last beer probably with you boys as well. So sometimes like we said, it is that time of year, and there are going to be people losing their jobs. But at the same time, these are people who have worked in the industry for a long time, and you assume no matter which career they do move into, they'll be snapped up pretty quickly.
Yeah, exactly right. Before we move on from rugby league, the Penrith Panthers have thrown a cat amongst the pigeons, and this happened previously in AFL, bro, so you'll have some thoughts on this. The Penrith Panthers, they can't make the top 4. They're basically consigned to playing an elimination final in the first round, so they've made a decision to rest 16 players. Remembering that an NRL squad is 17 players, they've rested 16 players. I have 6 players debuting, 10 players coming in who've played some games at different points this year. But there's a lot of people that have got some pretty strong opinions on this. At the end of the day, it is what it is. Like, it's well within the rules. Do I love it? No. But do I hate it? No. It's great for those guys who are getting an opportunity to put themselves in the shop window. It's great for the Bulldogs who they're playing against, because they're more than likely going to play themselves into form. Although imagine going into finals off the loss to a New South Wales Cup side. There's not much you can do about this unless you go down that route the AFL have done previously, where you have a week off, which then loses momentum for everyone. And it doesn't matter what you do, then someone's going to try and find a way to, when it suits them, take advantage.
Oh, we've seen this even 2 years ago. I think Geelong, as soon as they realised they weren't making the 8, everyone went in for off-season surgeries, even the ones who I don't even think needed a surgery. They got one in for free, 2-for-1 sort of deal. And you really look at this, and I can understand both sides of the argument. But for me, I think going into any final, no matter whether it's the players playing or not, if you go out there and you get absolutely flogged, it's for me, it's just bad juju going into a final. I don't care the players are playing, the players are not. It can do things to a club that sometimes you're not ready for. But in saying that, Penrith, it's clear that they know what they're doing, Chris.
Yeah, look, it's not their first rodeo. They, and again, the proof will be in the pudding. If they go and bow out in that elimination final, then obviously your bad juju theme will be probably right. The funniest thing that could happen here is that their reserve grade team comes out and beats the Bulldogs, and then all of a sudden Ivan Cleary's going, geez, right, I've got some question marks over who I pick next week. But it's going to be an interesting one. Like teams always play ducks and drags. We've seen teams in the AFL where you've got draft picks. They'll tank, they'll throw off, they'll do all sorts of things. I mean, we're going to talk about it in a little bit, and you guys would have picked it apart on your Third Man Up podcast. As we're recording tonight, there's a game between the Gold Coast Suns and Essendon, where Gold Coast need to essentially win the game by a certain margin to make sure they make finals, but avoid a trip to WA. So, it's just the same thing on a different scale, right? Like, these teams are just, you got to game the system. And what's that old line? Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Exactly right. But then you think about that, and they got absolutely walloped by GWS not that long ago too. So who knows which way they want to go? It's just such an interesting watch for me in every single league and every single code. And no one's tanking, Chris. You ask every coach, no, we're not tanking. We're just, trying to fall back in a forward pocket this week if you're talking footy terms, or, we're trying the 170 centimetre bloke in the ruck just to see if he can jump that high. It's not tanking. We've got to be clear on that. We're just trying some things.
Look, mate, I'm a North Melbourne fan. If we were able to tank it, it'd be great. But that's just us turning up on the weekend. Anyway, moving on from rugby league, let's talk a little bit of golf. Not something we get into a lot. We had Matty Willoughby all lined up for this, but he was a late withdrawal, unfortunately. He's a golf guru. But really good news for the Australian Open. The organisers of the Augusta National, a.k.a. the Masters, have announced that after ratification of their field and qualification processes for 2026, the winner of the Men's Australian Open will be granted automatic entry into the Masters as part of a rare change to qualifying criteria by the Augusta National. It's now one of 6 National Opens where the winner will be handed a ticket to the first major of the next year, so 2026. How good is this for so many reasons? One, it's just obviously great to be talking about, Aussie golf being in the spotlight, and obviously the recognition that it means if we're one of only 6. But this is going to bring some players down under, I think, for the Aussie Open.
I think that's the best thing. And we've actually seen, I think, Australian golf over the last 2 or 3 years is really starting to gain a little bit more recognition. We are starting to get those big players back down here on a more consistent basis. And this is just going to, increase it. And once you start getting those big name players, the crowd start coming more and more people start to get involved at grassroots levels, which is what it's all about too.
Certainly is. And the great thing here, we know the Masters is the most exclusive of exclusive events. They like to keep their fields under 100. So to think that one of those 100 spots at one of the biggest tournaments, for mine, the biggest tournament in golf in the world, is going to go to a winner of an Australian tournament. It doesn't mean it's an Aussie. It means that we'll probably start attracting some other guys that might have, missed some pieces at different points. And where it sits in the calendar as well works really nicely. It's in the warmer weather leading in. So that's going to be great. Can't wait to see how this plays out. And, maybe we'll see, the likes of, we've got Rory McIlroy who's going to come back down in December. Maybe we'll start seeing those guys coming down in 2026 and 2027 and these sorts of things. And we'll start to see the best of the world coming down here because, why wouldn't you want to come to Australia in December, Melbourne, Sydney, get around a few of the tournaments, play some wonderful golf, some wonderful weather when it's, European or US winter. Like it just makes a lot of sense. And now a chance to qualify for the Masters. I can't wait, mate. I think I'll be sussing out very soon after we record the price of an Australian Open to you because we might be seeing some of the best in the world.
Yeah, me too. There's nothing I love more than, you go to the golf too and you go there for a whole day. I've been a couple of times and it's just magnificent, especially when you do get these big name players and everyone follows them for the day and it's fantastic. And fingers crossed that does happen. And like you said, we might get those big names come down, try and qualify early, and then obviously that sets up their schedule later in the year too. So yeah, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, cannot wait. It's great news and great to see Australian golf up in that top echelon. So looking forward to that. Let's move to a little bit of a different round ball, the round ball game, football. Lockie Avil and the Round Ball Australia crew would normally be here. We'd normally have someone pinch hitting, but we're only talking about it briefly because I want to talk about this. Brody, can you tell me, just before you turned 17, think about those last couple of months of the wonderful time that was 16, high school, all those times. What was your sporting career looking like at that point?
Not very good because I just got my P's and I couldn't really care anything about sport. I was more worried about where I was going on a Saturday night there, Chris, and definitely wasn't doing what this young fella is over in England right now.
No, certainly not. It is absolutely wild. Rio Gamoa, I think it's pronounced. I'm not great on the pronunciation here. 16 years and 361 days old, scored the winner 9.5 minutes into stoppage time against Newcastle United. Liverpool, some concerns over their defence a little bit because they conceded 2 versus the Geordies, but he is the 4th youngest scorer in Premier League history. James Vaughan, James Milner and Wayne Rooney. Only 1 day older than Wayne Rooney was when he scored his first English Premier League goal. And not only was it a goal, it was a goal in stoppage time to win the game. Absolutely astonishing. 16 years old. Yeah, as you say, like, mate, my sporting highlights never got anywhere near that. I barely even played first grade in most of the sports I played. This kid is doing it on the biggest stage at St. James's Park. It's huge. Hopefully he can, continue on. It's a big, mark in your early days of your career. Yeah,
I just, imagine him going back to school and sits down with his classmates and, yesterday you scored the winner against Liverpool and FIFA 26, 25, what difficulty did you have it on? It's like, no, mate, no, legitimately. I played him yesterday and, not 9 minutes into stoppage time, I scored the winner. Just imagine that chat with your classmates.
I'm taking a punt. I reckon most of them know, but
I reckon they might.
Everyone else is. I reckon that's a pretty good excuse for why it was a Monday night game. So I reckon it's a pretty good excuse for why you didn't do your homework.
I reckon. It depends who your teacher follows.
If your teacher's a Newcastle fan, you're absolutely cooked. Attention and in big trouble. But look, he's a name to watch. We will continue to keep an eye on him and the EPL. We talked about it the other day with a bit of preview with Adam Martin and Lockie Avil. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing how the EPL season pushes forward. We won't talk about how bad Man City were in the first game because they've broken my heart already. But moving on, mate, we're going to go right into your wheelhouse here. Jeff Fenech, No Limit Boxing. He's called them clowns, and that was probably just the warm-up and the opening salvo.
Mate, anyone who watched this No Limit card, I'm so sorry. Anyone who paid for it, I am even more sorry. Anyone who went in there live, get your refunds. Because we talked about this in the lead-up. Yes, Jeff Fenech had a crack, but this was a card put together And anyone who had paid the slightest attention to Australian boxing and not bought into the No Limit hype, where that obviously, they've got a bit of an in with Code Sports, with Fox Sports, this was an absolute joke. And it was disgusting that they'd labelled this fighter. They got Ismaili in and they labelled him as a killer and this and this. And, I actually put it out on my Twitter saying he quit in his last fight and got I actually commented on No Limit's post, which got deleted very quickly. And I'm now blocked from No Limit on Twitter. Let me just put that out there. But anyway, it's really sad because this should have been free to air, a fight night on Fox Sports or KO or something like that. Because if you want to get the Australian public actually behind our fighters, if you care about our Australian boxers, put it on free to air, because this was a fight that did not belong on a pay-per-view. It's an absolute joke. And Zarafa got the job done, but even that fight was pretty bad as well. We can talk about that. And look, they are setting up for the Nikita and Zarafa fight down the line. We all know that, but this was a card that should not have been put on pay-per-view.
Yeah, it's interesting. As I said, Fenech was pretty strong in what he had to say. He goes, I was watching that first round thinking, well, imagine if someone showed him how to do things properly, showed him how to do this, how to do that. We've seen in other fights where he gets drops, he makes mistakes, they're not looking after him. It's never been addressed, and that's because his team don't effing know. So, look, he was actually quite strong in his praise of Nikita's ability, but just said he's not finding anywhere near his ceiling. He also said the same about what's been happening with Jarvis. A lot of the guys that are running under that banner and being promoted by No Limit. The No Limit camp came back out, and notably it wasn't actually the No Limit camp. It was the manager. I'm having a mental blank on his first name of Glenn Jennings, who sort of came out and said, basically Jeff Fenech needs to make sure that his own camp's in order before he starts throwing stones. But it'll be interesting to see what comes of this. As you said, there's a chance of either Zarafa or a Jarvis fight next for Zoo. Look, to Zoo's credit, he did a job. I will say that. He obviously, but again, Ismaili clearly wasn't up to it. The guy's gone back to Europe. He's taken a payday. He's got broken ribs, but he was subpar at best from, watching back the highlights or the lowlights, depending on how you want to view it.
Oh, you could see he didn't even want to get up at, the first bell. And last fight, he quit as well against a much less fighter than Nikita Zhu. And it's really sad for Australian boxing because we want to get behind Nikita so much. We want to get behind our Australian fighters. We want to get behind Brock Jarvis. But when it starts, we talked about it off air, when it starts to get turned into a reality show, more so than a sport, that's when the diehard fans will jump off and just say, no, I've had enough.
Yeah, it is getting to that point. And then, Nikita's carry on, I guess you'll call it, afterwards. And the fact that it seems to be encouraged by the Roses, by No Limit. I don't know whether Jennings is encouraging it or not, but, what you walk past is what you accept in terms of standards. It's heading down the route of being some sort of reality TV sort of drama nonsense. Like they're just looking for, any press is, good press sort of stuff. It's getting a bit, look, you turn your nose up at it. Yeah, it's Kardashian-esque.
Yeah, like the whole stuff about Thunderstruck, because that's what his daughter come out to. And it was just like, why? Like, why are you talking about this when, look, you've done a great job. Talk about the fight. Talk about who's next. Hype it up. Like, just call someone out. Do something that we want to get around as the Australian public. And No Limit, there's no limit to what they won't do for money. Like, let's be honest. That's the story here. They're not here looking after Australian fighters. They're here trying to make a buck more so than anything else.
Yeah, exactly right. And Jeff talked about it. He talked about the fact that he didn't feel they were protecting their boxers. He didn't feel like they looked after him. Tim had I think his word was a hole in his head, and they let him keep going. So it is what it is. There's obviously, it's going to sell some tickets, but again, I just want to, we want to hope, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, that these fighters are being looked after. Jeff's probably not exactly a walking case study in someone having been looked after. A little bit of CTE going on there, especially if you saw that social media clip the other day of him trying to punk or prank his daughter and her partner, Bradman Best, the Knights and New South Wales Blues player. But look, he's going out there. I think he's got the best intentions, and possibly because he knows what happened to him. So we'll wait and see. Undoubtedly, there's going to be some more twists, some more turns, some more absolute fireworks in this. But Jeff Fenech's not going away. No Limit's not going away. And the Zoo brothers are not going away either. I just hope that they can get the best out of their career is the one thing I ask.
Yeah, I think the worst thing that we're all fearing as fans of Nikita and fans of Australian boxing is he gets hyped up as this monster. goes over to the US and he gets found out really quickly and he comes back here and, he's in a bit of no man's land. And that's the last thing we want, because we do want him to do well. And that's one thing we've really got to, explain, that we're not jumping on Nikita, but we want him to do well and we want him to be, prepared. So when he does get over there, and we all know he will at time, but we don't want him to rush to get over there and then get found out and, see what happened to Tim with those back-to-back fights, and he just hasn't got the same fighter since.
Yeah, and that's what Jeff talked about a little bit, right? Like, he talked about going and getting some additional coaching. He wasn't suggesting they get rid of their coach Igor. He was talking about an Antonio Tava, someone who's been, I think his words were, it's been punched in the effing face. They need someone who knows what it's like, has been through that over there, and there's plenty of guys in the US that would be prepared to help them. And I think from that point of view that Fenech's not just trying to make headlines here. He actually is trying to come from a best interest point of view. So we'll wait and see what comes of it. I don't know how we segue from that into the AFL story that we're about to go to, but we were talking last week about the fact that Josh Cavallo was essentially the first and only openly gay at that point player in any of the major sporting leagues in Australia. We'd had obviously Ian Roberts come out quite at some time before in the rugby league post his playing career. And we've now had Mitch Brown, the former West Coast Eagles player, played nearly 100 games for the Eagles up until 2016. As I understand from the announcement that he's come out with, that he's come out as bisexual. It's quite a bold move. It's still not an active player, but at the same time, I think this is, a small step in the right direction. Because there's a lot of publicity. There's going to be a lot of blowback that's going to come from this in a, unfortunately, still somewhat toxic sporting environment that surrounds our major footy codes.
Yeah, and being the first one, fingers crossed, it does open the gates a little bit, and not for everyone to come out, but to feel comfortable in themselves, and that's all we want as fans of the game, players of the game. Is no matter where you are, no matter what workplace you're in, you feel comfortable enough to be the person you are. So, well done to Mitch Brown, being the first person to come out in any industry is so brave. So it would have been really, really hard, and unfortunately, it's probably taken a really bad situation for it to happen. But at the same time, if it's a silver lining that he's the first person and we do get 2 or 3 to roll on from it, then, that's a good thing that can come out of something that's obviously been pretty hard.
Yeah, he talked about this. He sort of said, the weight of hiding, his sexuality had taken a huge toll on his AFL career, where again, and we talked about this last week around the insults and the sledges, they have been quite, commonplace historically. Like, they are very much, ingrained and interwoven into the culture. And it's something we need to get a little bit wiser about. We all make mistakes, obviously. But again, hopefully him, lifting the lid here can allow others to be comfortable to, be able to be themselves and understand that it is a predominantly accepting environment as we head, well into the 21st century. So hats off to Mitch Brown. Not an easy decision to make. But again, I think a huge one in terms of, the old one small step for man sort of mentality, that hopefully this will open up some doors for some others to, again, be a bit more comfortable in publicly being able to be who they are rather than having to cover things up.
Yeah, and we're still getting these issues in society now, but at the same time, we do have to look at it. It is a lot better now than what it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And fingers crossed we can just keep improving.
Yeah, certainly. In other big AFL news, Harley Reid. Still on Mitch Brown. Harley Reid has announced that he will sign a 2-year contract extension at West Coast to keep him to the club until at least the end of 2028. The talk about this is it is equal to that record-breaking $2 million mark as well. So we've now got two $2 million men.
Yeah, I look at this. You got a St Kilda fella averaging 35 and a couple of goals a game, and you got a West Coast young fella averaging 15 and 7 frees against. So depends which way you look at it. There's probably a bit of my Freo bias showing up there. But look, in a way, I think this is a big win for West Coast Eagles. They've had one for the year. This is definitely their biggest win. Is getting Harley Reid's signature, and it doesn't allow the immediate success, but it does allow Harley Reid sign. We can go after a few young guys in the trade period, and then now we've got something to build around. 2 years time, we know that free agency, that cap's going to go up by quite a bit as well, and then that's where the big offers will come back. Whether he is going to go to back to Victoria, which is highly speculated at this stage.
Yeah, well, look, if I'm a St Kilda fan, I'm actually pretty happy because they were one of the leading contenders with talk that they were going to offer him a 12-year, $25 million deal. And even though, as you said, the cap's going to go up, that's $4 million tied into 2 players. And again, that's it's a Newcastle Knights in the NRL with Kalen Ponga and Dylan Brown sort of drama. Like, salary cap balance is such a key piece. Like, there must be a gold mine under Moorabbin, I don't know. But yeah, if I'm a St Kilda fan, I'm happy that he signed back at West Coast.
That's 5.7 if you include Tom De Koning as well, who's just signed there for 8 years and $1.7 million. So, yeah, look, well, let's be honest, St Kilda have been in the market for every single free agent that's come about. We saw early in the year with Finn Callahan, Jordan DeGoey, Luke Davis-Uniacke. So every time there's a free agent, St Kilda seem to put their hat in the ring, and they don't usually get it. So they probably chase three, thinking they might get one if they're lucky. And they've got two on big money. So Lee Collier, rumoured to be coming as well. So I think Liam Ryan from West Coast will be coming there on 500,000 or 600,000 as a small forward too. So not sure what they found under Moorabbin, but look, Ross Lyon might have gone down to Geelong and found a couple of farms and just put a couple of cattle on there.
Sounds like Ross Lyon followed a rainbow to the end and found the pot of gold. Maybe he's the leprechaun. I don't know. There's a great image. Ross Lyon dressed as a leprechaun. Anyway, what were we talking about off air about going off on rogue tangents? Dear, oh dear. Well, again, congrats to Harley. At the end of the day, if someone offers you overs to do your job, take it. I give that career advice freely to anyone who's tuning in. Yep.
And feel free to change clubs or do anything. And look, there's a lot of talk about Tom De Koning, leaving on $1.7 million. But look, I look at it, and if you were offered an extra $600,000 or $700,000 to do the exact same job somewhere else, Chris, we'd all jump at the opportunity. Let's be honest.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting. We'll wait and see. I was intrigued to see Toby Green coming out and saying that if a club pays a single player $2 million a year, he doesn't think they're going to be able to win flags. So it might be true in the current cap era, but very quickly, once upon a time that would have been true about paying players $1 million a year, and how many of them are there now?
Yeah, and you look at Wayne Carey. I think in 1999 he took up 20 or 25% of the salary cap himself, and they got 2 flags out of it. But that was back in the Pagans paddock days. We could have one-on-one inside 50s, and the game's changed a lot since then.
1999, what a time to be alive when the Kangaroos were a good team. You take me back, Brates. Take me back.
I'll let you go on a tangent now, mate. You can finish off the rest of the 20 minutes of the podcast just on that.
Yeah, well, look, I was only, I was 12. It would have been great. It would have been wonderful. I might have even been able to spend the next 4 years perfecting my football skills so I could go and score a goal against Newcastle United, or practicing my sprinting so that I could go and bully the people at schoolyard meets. Probably a strong word when we talk about Gout, calling him a bully, but he has run at a Queensland school meet, and not only has he run at a Queensland school meet, he's run 9.94 seconds for the 100 metres for the first time. It's not an official time, though. But again, it was clocked at 9.94. So this is at a school meet. This is just like, there's always someone, fast and scary when you go to school athletics meets, right? Like, but you're going up against Gout Gout. Not only are you going up against Gout Gout, he sets a personal best. Like, you're not competing. How do you compete? I'm just probably going to stand in the blocks and watch.
Well, I don't know about you, but I never had blocks at my school athletics meets. I was sort of there running on grass barefoot. So I can imagine that. Then Gout Gout rocks up next to you, in the spikes, and he would have been crossing the finish line, I reckon, as I was 15 metres out of past the starting line. And look, this is great. I think it's great that he's done it, because how many extra parents, kids, families would have gone to this school athletics carnival getting to watch how much Gout Gout beats everyone by?
Well, I'd suggest they should have sold tickets, but it's the GPS. So they've, these private schools have got plenty of money as it is. JR's come in. Are you going to reminisce on your schoolyard bullying?
I'm just going to reminisce, like, my schoolyard running sort of scenario was running towards a tyre factory. Like, that's the difference there is in, like, what this all is.
JR went to school at Springfield Elementary.
It's the actual thing. There was up until 6 months ago a tyre factory next to my primary school.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm a bit concerned that, we're talking about 17-year-olds. You're talking about primary school. JR,
I'm trying to think of the last time I ran as well.
Yeah, look, I'm getting to that point in my life that I'm not running unless I'm being chased, so that's probably fair. But anyway, look, Gout Gout continues to set records. Unfortunately, like his one last year when it was when he ran the 10.04, it doesn't count either because of timing reasons around this. But again, the fact that he's managed to break 10 seconds, let's run with it, let's go with it. Pardon the pun, bros. It's great to see. We're heading towards some big events. We've got the Com Games next year. Then we'll head into the Olympics and eventually a home Olympics when, Gout Gout's going to be right in those early to mid-20s and prime sprinting age.
Yeah, look, I think Commonwealth Games is going to come at a great time for Gout Gout, just to get that experience on, not the biggest stage, but in terms of Australia and the media that's going to be around the Commonwealth Games, it's going to be really big And it's not going to be like the Olympics, but it's going to be pretty close. And it's going to give him, a great chance. And look, it's going to be that natural progression that we're all so excited for. But I just hope we don't, do what we did to Kathy Freeman, where she can no longer enjoy her running. So fingers crossed he can embrace it as much as he possibly can, and we can just all get behind him. And we all know Australia loves to bring people down when they don't perform. But look, this kid's special, and we just need to support him wherever we can.
We certainly do. Really excited to see what he can do with the World Athletics Championships in a few weeks in Tokyo, and that's what this was a tune-up for. So, JR, it's nice to have an Aussie sprinter who's genuinely in the mix when we go to one of these big events. So I'm pumped for it.
Yeah, look, it's just a good career to be watching. Like as Brody said, like during those big meets that are coming up over the next couple of years, he's going to be hitting prime sprinting age. So like it's just more to come. And if he's doing this age, it's really exciting to see what's going to happen next.
Certainly is. We'll keep an eye on that. The World Athletics Championships, the 13th to the 21st of September. So just over 2 weeks away. So undoubtedly we'll be talking about Gout. And I think we probably should just temper our expectations. Finals bound to be great. That'll be a really strong result, I think, at this age. As, he's got plenty of career in front of him to that point. Let's hope he's still enjoying his running for a long time to come. JR, you've timed it perfectly. We're going to finish out with some F1. And I know not only do you love the F1, you love the fact that we're going to have another, and I'll put air quotes here, an asterisk, another honorary Aussie back on the F1 grid next year.
We got Valtteri back. We got Perez back as well, but like that's sort of par for the course. The worst kept secret in Formula One was the driver pairing for Cadillac. They made their major announcement. Started out sort of last night. Then there was an actual confirmation early this morning with an ad from Keanu Reeves. But yeah, ESPN ran the story early. Valtteri's been hinting at it for a little while. He's had a couple of cheeky videos like that, like just walking past Cadillac and like, ooh, this is a nice seat and things like that. Perez has been very quiet, would be the sort of the yin to the yang in that one, where Perez just kept his head down, just waited to the announcement. Hasn't sort of done a lot of media since. Still very much like wanting, like he's already had a dig at Liam Lawson during the media today that like Lawson's like finishing the points in 5 races total. Like, come on.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with Liam Lawson. Great to see that they've gone with 2 experienced drivers, Brody. There was talk they might have looked towards a less experienced or even a rookie American driver. I think in terms of setting a platform, obviously they're just going to have to bed down a vehicle, all those sorts of things under new regs and all these sorts of pieces. And we'll talk about the new regs in a moment. But I think 2 experienced drivers that, well known. Valtteri obviously will give him a real media face. We know that Checo's a little bit more reserved in that piece, but it'll be a nice yin to the yang as well, I think.
Yeah, I think JR summed it up perfectly. When it comes to this, it's that experience part. We all know in the game that the media can sometimes be, it's so much here, and having someone experienced in the media just as much behind the wheel is so important.
Certainly is. One person who won't be joining Cadillac is Christian Horner. There was some rumours floating around they might have been looking for him, and Dan Towers, who is the CEO of TWG Motorsport, who operate Cadillac's F1 team, has been pretty blunt in his dismissal of that. There've been no talks with Christian Horner. We have no plans to do that. I'd like to officially shut down that rumour. That's pretty straight to the point, JR. Christian Horner, you are not welcome here.
Yeah, that's like there's no dancing around that. Like he's just like Christian Horner's like his reputation has preceded him now. And like let's be honest, Cadillac's got like enough of an organization behind them, like in terms of just the racing they've been involved in, to just do their own thing. Like they're going to be a genuinely American team. We're going to see some American people in that team.
Yeah, well, we've got Graham Loudon there who's going to be running the team. He's got experience. He's previously the CEO of what was Marussia and Manor back in the day. Under his watch, they've already been doing race-ready weekend simulations. So they're getting themselves ready and primed to go, which it looks like they've got their ducks reasonably in a row, Broads, which is not always the thing in motorsport. Sometimes these things are left to the last minute, especially if you read some of Gunther Steiner's books about what went on when he was starting Haas. It was very touch and go at different points in different eras. So hopefully Cadillac are fully invested, fully committed, and the expansion of the grid isn't like some other expansions like, I don't know, the A-League where teams are getting kicked out later on.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there, Chris. And look, we've seen it so often when it comes to motorsport, and if you're off by the slightest detail, you get found out so quickly. So you need to have, no matter, on the track, off the track, if everything's not lined up, you get found out so quickly.
You certainly do. JR, I mentioned before the new regs. Obviously, there's some changes. The cars are going to be a little bit smaller. There's been some rumours coming out that Mercedes have thrown down the gauntlet almost, saying that they're targeting potential 400 kilometre an hour speeds in 2026. Not saying they will achieve them, but saying that's kind of where the glass ceiling is for them, and challenge some of the other teams. And they think that with some of the engineering that they'll be chasing much faster cars.
Well, look, there's a couple of things involved here, though. Like there is like a blueprint regulation here. So like if Mercedes are able to get to that speed, it means that all the other teams are going to get to that speed. I actually think Mercedes is just talking a bit of talk here. Like we would have heard from another team, or even just during the regulation announcements, like we had like the car of the future sort of stuff like a few years ago. They would have been talking about this top speed sort of limit that they were expecting. This is known sort of data for a couple of years now. So for Mercedes sort of be talking this up, it does seem just like a little bit of hype to me.
To be fair, I think the fastest ever speed recorded in an F1 car was nearly a decade ago. And it was actually Valtteri Bottas during qualifying. The numbers are around the mid 370s.
Would that be around the same time Valtteri Bottas was being told not to out-qualify Lewis?
Quite possibly, I would have thought. But yeah, like, we're talking like cars are quite often reaching around the 360 mark, right? The 350s is not unheard of. This is not a quantum leap. We're not going from 300 to 400, but it is a substantial leap in terms of what we've seen. And when you realise that you've got drivers that are strapped in, Brody, to open seat rockets with not much on, it's a little bit terrifying in some ways.
It still makes me wonder. You see some of the crashes, and look, you do watch your F1, you do watch any of motorsport, and until you're there live watching it, you don't really get how fast these guys are actually moving. And then when you do get there live and you see how fast they're going in such a small car with not much protection, and they do crash, you wonder how so many of them walk away from it.
Yeah, certainly. Well, I think the numbers are around the 355 to 360 this year. So when you start doing the maths on that, it is about a 9 to 10% if they're going to get knocking on the door of 400. We'll wait and see what comes of it. There will be some smaller cars, JR. We are expecting some other aerodynamic changes as well. And that's part of the new regs, I guess, is the new smaller cars, though, will obviously add to some overtaking as well, which is exciting. I don't think they'll be doing too much of that close to 400 kilometres an hour.
No, like we're never going to see those sort of speeds around Monaco, but we may see these cars pass each other at Monaco going forward.
What a time to be alive that would be. I feel like there's a lot of good times to be alive at the moment. Speaking of good times to be alive, there's some good times if you are the reigning IndyCar champion. There's talk that Alex Palau, who's won 4 of the last 5 IndyCar championships, is in the sights of Red Bull, JR. They're looking for something a little different.
Yeah, so there's a couple of conflicting reports about how this would all go down. Like he may line up straight with Max immediately. The more logical data that's sort of coming out is that he will line up in a Racing Bull car next year, and Isaac Hadjar will get the promotion to Red Bull. It sounds like Liam Lawson's he's not going back to that seat anytime soon, if at all.
Yeah, well, Palau's not a stranger to F1. He tried in 2022 to join McLaren and move to its IndyCar team as a progression to F1. Chip Ganassi, though, triggered an option to extend his services. He was allowed to be a test driver and made his F1 Grand Prix debut in a practice session back in 2022. So has been an F1 car before, obviously knows his racing road. So, F1 is the top of the tree, but his pedigree speaks for itself if he is to come across to F1, and he'll follow in the likes of, Juan Pablo Montoya.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there, Chris. Not really much more I could add on that one, mate. It's F1's not really my cup of tea, but I'm sure JR could finish that one off for me.
Yeah, look, in terms of racing is racing. Like there's particularly that open wheel sort of stuff, like where the cars themselves will perform differently, like they may handle in different ways and different things. Fundamentally, they are there's a progression. So like the Indy cars are probably close, like sort of the midpoint between F2 and F3, I think would be the best way to describe IndyCar at the moment. So like it's not going to be like an absolute game changing. It's not going to be like going from a V8 supercar into a F1 car. It's going to be it's going to be quicker. It's going to be harder, but it's going to be doable.
If he is to come across JR, where is the expectation? Is it Sebastian Bourdais? Is it Juan Pablo Montoya, or is it Jacques Villeneuve?
Look, I think it's Juan Pablo Montoya at this point. Actually, like to be honest, like just a good mid-range driver, which is why I think you see him in the Racing Bull. But you'll see him breaking into that top 10, I believe, which what the expectation would be.
Oh, there was a chance to mend our fences with Jacques Villeneuve because we know he's a fan of the show, but we're going to leave him on the outer. But a big thank you to you, JR Carter, as always, for coming on, talking motorsport, and as Brody so eloquently put it, just really absolutely nailing the motorsport and the F1 segment of the show.
Cheers, boys.
And thank you, Brady Burrows from the Third Man Up podcast. If you want some more detail on the AFL, of course, we talked about it briefly before, the fact that the season is wrapping up. They've talked about it all on the Third Man Up podcast. You can catch him and the third most fined man in AFL history currently, Spider Everett. Bros, as always, love having you on the show. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
A big thank you, everyone, for sticking with us and tuning in again this week on our Around the Grounds segment. A big thank you to Brodie Burrows from the Third Man Up podcast. Make sure to check it out. Wonderful tune in, a wonderful listen, all the insight on AFL and much, much more with Brodie and the great Spider Everett. Big thanks to JR Carter, our producer, our magic man, on the ones and twos and getting in and digging into the F1 news as well. The F1 season is continuing on and heating up. Keep an eye out, keep an ear out. JR will be back in the coming weeks to talk some more about the run home as Oscar Piastri battles for bringing a world title back to Australia. In the meantime, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the bell so you get those notifications. That way you'll see when all of our episodes drop, our weekly Around the Grounds, our intermittent and ever-occurring daily dose episodes as well. So if there's anything else that we drop. And if you want to keep up to date with the shorter snippets in between that, you can follow our social media channels. You can find us on Facebook, on Instagram, on X, and on TikTok at The Chris Mack Show. Make sure to get involved down in the comments. Let us know what you loved hearing, what you disagree with, what you agree with, what you'd like to hear more of. We'd love to hear from you, or slide into our DMs on any of our social media channels. We love the feedback. We love the engagement. But until next time, a big thank you for tuning in to your home of black and white opinion on sport. No greys here, and we'll talk to you again soon.